And we're back on a very snowy, miserable, frigid morning like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your snowy, miserable, at least in New York, Sunday morning here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So the irony of snowfall, the irony of waking up to the ground being blanketed and cars being blanketed in snow, and the telltale sign of trucks racing back and forth to try to make sure that, well, there's not multiple car pileups at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. As we speak, it's only 5:15. What am I even doing awake? There's all kinds of questions and things to ponder when you wake up and it has snowed, and it will continue to snow at least for the next couple of hours. But we all have different thoughts and different ideas of snow. And do we have mostly good memories as children of snow days? Or do we have mostly bad memories of having to shovel, or heaven forbid, breaking a bone because we slipped on snow and ice, or in a car went sliding around and hopefully didn't fuck up our car too much, or again, get hurt in a car accident because the roads weren't properly cleared, or whatever it might be. When I think snow, whether it's a happy story, a sad story, or an absurd story, it's really a question of, you just give me an age. Give me an age and I'll tell you what I thought of snow. When I was 5, greatest thing ever. When I was 10, still pretty great, because we might get a day off from school if it snows more than 4 inches. This is one of those things when you're little, you start saying, what's the forecast? What's the forecast? Oh, it's going to be 2 to 4. Ooh, I don't think that's going to be enough snow for us to get a day off from school. The snow day was one of the great things in a little kid thought process. Maybe in other states it's different. You know, the irony being that there are certain states where it snows a lot and certain areas where it snows a lot, but you never have a day off from school. If you lived in the city, it had to snow about 3 feet for you to get a snow day, because they were always going to be able to get the trucks out. And, you know, the great thing they always did in Manhattan is, instead of pushing the snow to the side, they would kind of push the snow to the center. So in the immortal words of my dear old dad, Alan Philip Cohen, I said, well, I don't understand. Why would they push the snow to the center? So the cars and the taxi cabs and the buses can beat the shit out of it. Why do you think? Kind of unconventional phrasing by my dad, but he always would say that when people would ask. They just let the cars and everything beat the shit out of it. It's kind of a funny way of phrasing it. So when I think snow, I usually think of this season. I think of the run-up to Christmas, the run-up to Hanukkah, the run-up to New Year's. I think of people gathering and the sort of cliche of snow on Christmas Eve, snow on Christmas morning. I really do think of these things. As much as I struggled as a kid from a certain perspective, I still had a privileged childhood, and I really shouldn't have been bitching and moaning as much as I did. But there are certain concepts, there are certain things that stick with me. Yes, the idea of the snow day, 100% certain. But when I got to high school age and I began to see what a real nuisance it was when it snowed, when you're old enough to help someone shovel, help someone brush the snow off of cars, and suddenly that's not really that great. We can do without this. But when I was in high school, I got to sing at Massapequa High School's what was called the a cappella choir. And that in and of itself has nothing to do with snow. It does have to do with the season, because when it got into this time of year, and it was usually the third week, the week of, you know, where we would get time off because Christmas was upcoming or whatever it might be. But we, as the a cappella choir and the orchestra, we would go on tour and we would sing at, like family service centers, rest homes, these kinds of places. And the idea was to try to bring holiday cheer to, cliche though this may be, in some cases less fortunate, children, foster children, and in some instances it was older people who maybe their families weren't around, and it was just an idea to try to cheer people up and to try to spread holiday cheer to people who really don't have enough of it in their life. And this was 3 years that this was done. I was in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, and there were times there was snow on the ground. And that to me was fitting. That made sense, and that it just added to the sense of the season for me. And you're wearing this kind of garb. We had these big blue and yellow robes that we sang in and we walked around in. And I don't know, it felt like, in a weird way, as much as I was struggling throughout that era, that I was kind of doing my part to uphold the best of what the season would be. And, try not to slip and fall. It's always a thing. Try not to slip and fall. My grandfather, my mom's father, twisted his ankle in Massapequa. Grandpa seemed like he was probably 80. He wasn't. He was in his 60s at the time. But I was a little kid, and I can remember my mom saying, "Your grandfather twisted his ankle." Now, the first time you hear that doesn't really mean anything. I didn't understand that twisting your ankle could be a devastating injury, especially if you do it on ice. Well, Grandpa was laid up for a while. That was not good. So these are also things that we think about, but when you're out there, you're singing, you're moving around from place to place. Everything is potentially perilous when there's a lot of snow on the ground. So that part of it was not fun. The rest of it, yes, the singing, the sense of community, trying to spread comfort and joy, all of that, great. Now, as an older person, I am not exactly proud of what I'm about to tell you, but this directly relates to snowfall. Now, you see where I am now. I'm in a basement gym, right? And most of you know I live in a community where there's a gym and a clubhouse, 2 blocks from here, like it's a complex. So I'll never not be able to work out because of snow. Never. I mean, if I choose to not work out, I choose to not work out, but there is never going to be a situation, as long as I'm here, where I can't at least work out because it's snowing. So as an adult, got a driver's license. I was a little bit old. I was 19 years old and started going to Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym. Lived with my dad in an apartment in Woodbury, New York, which was very close to Bev's, which is in Syosset, then is now. And the first time there was any kind of snowfall after I got my driver's license, it wasn't much. I just, rolled my way over there and, had a workout. But as the years accelerated and my gym obsession, if you want to call it that, other people would say, well, it's not really a gym obsession. You're just trying to do right by your health, which is true, I guess. There were a lot of mornings where I went or attempted to go to Bev's where I should have just said, no, thank you, I'm all set here. The risk reward getting there this one day in this weather, not good. There isn't any reason for you to do this, which is all the more where you should start thinking, I probably should get some kind of equipment for home, shouldn't I? Do I have to always rely on the fact that maybe I'm going to be able to slide my way over there and possibly smash up the car? Well, I don't have any horror stories as a much younger person. Most of the terrible snowstorms that happened when my father and I lived in Woodbury, which would have been 92 to 95, when I had just started getting into working out, 92 to early 96. I remember the blizzard of 96. Bev's was closed. And for those who know about Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym, they really don't like to close. It has to be something crazy in that fashion. And briefly, they were closed during the Superstorm Sandy in 2012, which is more than 13 years ago now. But it is very rare for that place for them to not at least try to open or be able to open. Usually they just open later in the day once the snowfall, even now when the snow would stop. Although a morning like this morning, they're for sure going to be open at 6, almost 100%, because the snow is coming down. It's going to be, terrible driving, but it's not that bad. And if you have a truck, I got a Jeep or whatever, if you have that kind of car, you can make it a couple of miles. You don't want to drive 30 or 40 miles in this shit while it's still coming down. But the fever, the need to work out on a given day as if something terrible was going to happen. Snow began to almost be like the enemy. Because whenever you would hear we're expecting snow overnight, there was always like being gripped by panic. Like, oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world if when I wake up, it's not viable for me to go to the gym. And it had nothing to do with whether it was the weekend, like Friday night or Saturday night. Well, gym's open at 6, so you have more time. That part of it is irrelevant. It was just the idea, the need to risk an accident where you say to yourself, what are the odds at 5:15 in the morning, at 3:30 in the morning, depending on the day? What are the odds on a given day with perfect weather? It could be 10 degrees, but that there's no precipitation, there's no snow, there's no ice. Statistically speaking, remember my dad was a CPA, my brain works in a similar fashion. Statistically speaking, what are the odds that you're going to smash up your car under normal circumstances? You're an okay driver. You're not, Jeff Gordon, but you're a normal person who drives and does not have a history of getting into accidents. A normal dry morning versus it's snowing already 1 inch per hour and there's 6 inches on the ground. The odds of an accident are about 1,000 times greater, I would say, 1,000 times. If you want me to go a little bit lower and say it's only 500 times, but you understand. You normally can drive in optimal conditions where it is dry. There is no one on the road. The odds of an accident are not that great. But when you add in what I just said, it is no longer viable. It's no longer viable. The number of times I went to Bev's gym either from, not so much from Woodbury. I don't have any memory of driving over there in a terrible. I also didn't go at 4 in the morning. It's different. If your plan is to get there at 9 a.m. and it's light at 6:30, that's also different. It just seems safer when the roads have at least somewhat been treated. I mean, this is all real stuff that I dealt with frequently, basically one winter after another, worrying and stressing like crazy. Am I going to be able to get to Bev's? It's difficult to put yourself into the mindset of a person who is obsessed, but, I still am, but now I don't have to do what I'm talking about. So I can remember multiple times over the years. You want to talk like 2006, when I started going super early in the morning, 2008, 2010, there were mornings where the car was sliding around. It was literally sliding around. And I should have hit a retaining wall on the LIE. I was doing about 10 miles per hour because I was almost there. I didn't need to go any faster. And I'm sliding onto the shoulder and I'm slowing down and I still am not controlling the car. The wheels are kind of doing like this, almost like a Dr. Strange. It was all negative. And then once I got there, it was like, oh, thank goodness. And if you would ask me, well, is it worth it? Oh, yeah, of course. Like, again, the one day, you got to get there. And honestly, I had this sort of life where if I had gone at 10 in the morning, big fucking deal. Like, I had myself convinced it has to be this time today. Well, bro, you got to work out before your 9 to 5? No. So then what are you doing? I just have to go. Yeah, but why? Why is it critical to go now? You could wait for the sun to come up for the roads to be treated. No, I got to go now. That's it. That's basically it. So then the snow was my enemy, and I am very, very lucky that I never ran a car into the wall or just smashed into somebody because I couldn't brake. I never had a car that was well equipped for snow. Not once. I wish that I had, but I didn't. And I was kind of envious of people who did, but I was also envious of people who had home gyms. And it is so weird given how my brain works, which is not that much different now. Maybe I'm a little bit calmer and a little bit a greater ability to make smarter decisions in situations like this. But it was never enough to convince me to do anything as far as get some sort of equipment. At least once I was in the apartment in Huntington, starting in 2016, there was nothing stopping me from putting in something like this. Unfortunately, we had to get to COVID for me to say, now wait a minute, there's nothing stopping me from getting some home gym equipment. It's unfortunate when you have the neurodivergent brain, this is not an excuse, this is more of a reality, that there are certain things which to the average person would seem very logical and very simple and easy. I kind of have to get hit over the head a little bit, metaphorically, hopefully not literally. So when COVID happened and I started putting pieces of home gym equipment, including this this little number that I'm on right now, which this thing is going to be 6 years old in March, and it still works like new. $103 all in for an Airwalker elliptical, and this thing still works like new. But when I started getting home gym equipment, the joke was, well, now you don't have to worry about driving to the gym in the winter, in snow, in ice, and taking your life into your hands and making stupid decisions and risking life and limb for something that, yeah, it's important. Of course it's important. But you have the kind of life where you can go later in the day. Nobody's telling you you have to go at 4 a.m. or if it's a Saturday, 6 a.m. Wait for the sun to come up. Wait for them to treat the fucking roads. Bro, come on, man. Come on. So now that I'm out here, I don't really have to worry. I got to clean the car. But you're in many of you know this, you're in a place that has an HOA. They kind of pave the roads in this area for you, and they kind of shovel your walk too. So this allows you to be even lazier and to just kind of wait until the sun comes up. If you have to go to work, of course, but today's Sunday, not as many people, proportionately speaking, work. And now I can appreciate the beauty because there's no pressure on me. I don't have to worry like something's going to happen if I don't get the car out at 3:30 in the morning. This is all so absurd, and I understand how dumb it sounds to certain people, but then there are other people that are laughing saying, I mean, it's terrible to say that this fucking idiot, that he's right, but he's right. Because this is a reality for a lot of people, especially, and I'm giving other people the out that I can't really give myself. If you have a certain kind of day, and your day is contingent upon getting in your 90 minutes or your 2 hours or your 1 hour in the morning, and your only option is to drive to a gym, it is a legitimately difficult decision, especially if you're not going at 3:30. But if you're going at a time where you know that they've treated the roads, you just got to clear the car and hopefully don't trip on the way to the car or out of the car, because that's just about as bad as it gets. A friend of mine tore his Achilles. He tore his Achilles after he had cleaned the car and then shoveled the walk, and down goes Frazier. So it's like you're never entirely safe in this kind of weather, and that has nothing to do with going to the gym. But living out here, when I was in Huntington, there were people who mistakenly said, oh yeah, he's living in the sticks. Living in the sticks? In Huntington? On the border of Nassau and Suffolk County, where Nassau County's a mile away? That's not living in the sticks. That's not even close. I'm another 30-some miles east. You got another hour and a half of Long Island to drive. You know how long it takes to get to Montauk from here? It might take longer than 90 minutes. Do you ever stop to think why this area is called Long Island? That's not a figurative meaning. It is a literal definition of this place. It is a long island. I don't even think that where I am is living in the sticks. I think you got to go at least to Riverhead. Okay, then maybe I'll agree with you. Now you're pretty far out. That's another 30 miles from here. But you're still not to the end of the island. And I've never even been to Montauk, have you? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But there's a nature preserve right here. And something that I didn't have the patience for as a younger person. It's not that I was immune to the beauty of nature, but I usually was in such a hurry to do everything that I didn't, smell the roses, as they say, that I didn't pause just for a little bit. And as an older person, I do. I like the idea of snow-covered trees and forest, like in the movie A Simple Plan, they're in a forest and here comes an airplane. Nothing terrible like that. But just the idea of nature, snow, deer running around, and other little animals that don't really exist in Massapequa or Woodbury or Huntington, or if they do, I never saw them out there. And just taking a minute to appreciate the beauty, not always being in such a rush. Now, there are areas of my life as I got older where I got to be in more and more of a rush. But now, ironically, with far more responsibilities than I had in my 30s and 40s, it's so stupid, but it's true. Now I take time. Now I appreciate it. Now the snow is not my enemy. I don't need to, oh, this is bullshit. What the fuck, man? Just got to be a little bit careful. Clear your car off, right? Make sure that you take your time walking. Don't try to get anywhere fast if you could go flying. You know, the older you get, you're no longer a good candidate for a fall. I love when orthopedists say, yeah, you know what, Jerry, you're still a good candidate for a fall. You should be fine. Well, thanks, Doc. That's really great news. But I don't like to think in terms of a good candidate. I don't want to fall. You know, when I was in Huntington and I lived in the apartment, I had a number of times where I took a header and I should have gotten injured and somehow I didn't. There was a time I was actually walking from my apartment. I wasn't going to go to Bev's because we were going to get a blizzard. This was like circa 2017. Not going to Bev's. So there were gyms in the area that I knew were going to be open, and I would just like do a day pass. This obviously is before I got any home gym stuff. And I can remember this one time I'm walking a block, okay? 1 block further north from my apartment. And as I'm just walking slowly, like I wasn't racing, it's 4:15 in the morning and I know this gym opens at 4. And I'm walking slowly and my feet still go out. And I think that at one point I was vertical. Like I'm walking, and then all of a sudden I'm like that. And I landed and I hit my head, but I had enough padding, barely felt it. You know, maybe I was knocked unconscious and that's why I barely felt it, but my memory is that I jumped right back up and walked even slower to get there. I did not even get a concussion. I guess because everything was so compressed here, I hit my head, but I barely felt it. Also, there was snow on the ground that probably cushioned it. But even something like that, I should have been even more careful. Because despite how beautiful snow is, I mean, we've seen the memes, you TikTok, and you see people trying to drive, but people trying to jog when it's like this. And there's one from, I think it was New York City, maybe it was Pittsburgh, but it was in like an urban center, and a woman is showing how to safely run in snow and ice, and she takes a header 3 seconds into the video. And she probably got injured worse than me. But at least that was an idea of being less dumb. Because I was just going to walk a block and a half rather than get into the car. And, you know, by percentage, the insurance companies would say, this is not a good idea. I think we got to raise this guy's premiums because he's a daredevil. Like, this is, no thank you, you know, we're all set here. So when you think of this season, and a lot of it maybe is contingent on what state you live in or where in the world you are, because different areas of the United States, snowfall is not as big a deal as other areas. If you're not used to getting it, and even here in New York, we've had plenty of winters where we had very weird weather and we might have stretches of brutal cold, but not much in the way of snow. Like something like this, 6-inch, 7-inch snowfall. I mean, you get it, but we've had winters where we never even had as much as a 10-inch snowfall. Whether it was me, you know, growing up in Massapequa or in Huntington or out here. We don't get any lake-affected snow. Like we don't have any strange situations in the atmosphere where we're supposed to get 3 inches and end up getting 10. It's very, very rare that the forecast gets blown by that much. It happens, but it doesn't happen very often. And normally if they say, we're going to get 1 inch overnight and maybe we'll get two more inches the following morning, it's usually going to be in that ballpark. The equipment for detecting these things is way better than it once was. So these are the things I ponder on snowy mornings, which are now, there is no pressure, there is no stress of wondering, am I going to be able to get to the gym? And I can just work out on my own, do my morning routine as I always would, and just enjoy the beauty of nature as the sun comes up. And as I have time to slowly get my car in condition for the day, you know, wherever I need to go. I don't have anything like spectacular today where, oh, you know, I got a gun to my head and I have to do this, despite the weather, and it's going to be tricky. It's not going to be that bad. And the expectation this time is it's probably going to stop snowing between 9 and 10. And if it's still a little bit of flurries at that time, they will have already been able to get the roads into decent condition because it isn't that cold. That's the other thing that you don't necessarily think about as a kid. If it's 15 to 20 degrees, like if you have a freeze during and after, like towards the end of the snow, then they can treat the roads, but there may still be problems. If it's 30 degrees, with the way the ice melt and all of that stuff and the salt and the sand, the main roads are going to be fine. And it's just a question of still being cautious and being careful. And, accidents happen. And also, I can slip from something else. It's always possible. It's not just the fact that, you're more likely in snow and ice, but, ice sometimes can be kind of clumsy, right? But this is what I think about at 5 a.m. when it snows and there is potentially treacherous road conditions. I think about all of the times that I was not safe and should have been, and I was very fortunate and have been very fortunate. But you know what? In general, I have been just very fortunate all around. When things have gone wrong, they usually don't go as wrong as they could, and for that, I'm grateful. So anybody that's going to go out early today, or just in general, take an extra second, take an extra 2 seconds, and try to appreciate the beauty of a big snowfall, especially if you live in an area with a forest and a lot of trees and a lot of little animals running around. Take an extra minute and kind of savor it, because we don't have unlimited amounts of time. We don't have unlimited blizzard level snowfall. Just be safe. And I hope you have a great Sunday. And if you have a football team that's still involved in the NFL playoffs, I hope your team wins today. Peace.